What's up guys, Jay Tiesler here. I just wanted to do a quick video on how to purchase cars on Craigslist and how to search them out and how to look them up and everything. So I'm here in Los Angeles, so I'm going to start here. You just go down to cars and trucks. I don't buy from dealers typically, but I like to work with someone. So if I'm trying to get basically dealers typically have a different type of car and you have to work with a salesman. You know, if you buy from the owner, you can typically get to know the car better because you're trying to find it from the original owner. If you're lucky, that gives you more history and background on the car. And if you buy from the dealer, it's a different thing. So let's just start with just going by the owner, and we can talk about it that way. Now, I like to search. First thing is first, you just go down to title status, and we only want to look at clean vehicles. That's that. Now, if you're looking for an automatic, you can go down to automatic. One thing I've been looking for lately is a turbo Supra, and with an automatic specifically. I know that sounds weird, but I've already got a manual Mustang, and I just wanted to drive a turbocharged auto Supra because that sounds like fun to me. So next, what you're going to do is, so it's very important because you're going to get a lot of cars that are going to have a bad title, that are listed for below value, and they're going to look interesting to you, but don't worry, don't save yourself some time and do that. And then I like to look in my area, 90066, and that helps you. You want to buy cars close to you, that way you don't have to Uber to there and back, get a buddy to drive you so far away. Now, this is a high density area, so if you live anywhere else, it's probably not going to work like this. I know when I lived in Nashville, it was really hard to find Supras for sale. It would be lucky to have one pop up on Craigslist once a week. There's not more than a small handful online at any time. So now for this, I'm just going to type in Super Turbo. Usually though, what you can do is search titles only, and nothing's in my area. So we'll go 5 miles, 5-mile radius, nothing there. Now if we do a 5-mile radius but we take it off the title, let's see what shows up. So here's an 87. You're not going to mess with that. That's a non-turbo. So if you want to be very specific about what you're looking for, let's just go Los Angeles, Super Turbo, search titles. Now, these are all, let me just tell you right off the bat what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a clean, original owner. It can be high miles, that's fine, but the body needs to be straight, no rust, no dents and dings, scratches, and it needs to be decently taken care of and not very modified. So right off the bat, I mean, this has got a single turbo. Not interested, definitely not interested in aftermarket paint, definitely not interested in body work. I've seen this car for sale on here for months. It has body work back here. It's got the rear quarter windows filled in and a molded body kit, and that's just not my thing. So okay, I don't want a front bumper. This is out of the question. It's already got a hood, front bumper. That's probably an aftermarket paint job. And the reason it's probably an aftermarket paint job is it was wrecked and they needed to put on a bumper. So the hood doesn't line up very good right there. See the gap? So these are telltale signs that the car's been wrecked, repainted, and on top of that, I just don't like any of this stuff. I like the factory clean look. So that one's out of the question. And I'm really actually looking for an MK3 because the MK4, the 1993 and up to 1993 to 1998 prices have just gone through the roof. So let's look at this one. I've seen this one before. This one's actually pretty clean. The thing I don't like is it's an 88 with 89 bumpers, which means, and tail lights, which means he's put these better looking tail lights on here. Not a big deal. But he's had my question is, how did he get the bumpers to match? It's probably been repainted, unfortunately, or this would be a decent candidate. Now, and I also, when I start seeing this stuff, I don't like this. I know that these need to be replaced because they're so old. They're 30 years old, but I'm not into that color I know he was trying to match the color, I get the idea, but I'm not into that. And then we've got this going on here, so that's not my style so much either. I'm looking for factory stock OEM look. It's a good car though. It's probably reliable. It's got 155,000 miles. With the MK3s, you just want to listen for a rod knock. So you want to keep the oil levels at normal. If they run low on oil, they will knock, and then you also want to look for overheating. So this is a 91. There's a reason why I don't like this one though also. This has a little too high miles for a 7M. This has got 248,000 miles. So the paint's faded, which is great. I love a faded paint job because all I have to do, usually what a faded paint job will do is it'll bring the value of the car down significantly, but you can bring the car back to life as soon as you get it home. You can take a buffer and just buff the car and it looks brand new. So you can take this faded paint job that looks kind of pink. I've done it. I used to have a red Supra that was faded like this, and you can buff it, and within 6 hours the car will look brand new again. And that'll usually knock off a couple $1,000, at least $1,000 off of the price of the vehicle. So I like the steering wheel. That's a good, nice original steering wheel. Automatic, cool, gray cloth. Not my favorite. It'd be nice if it was leather, but there's nothing wrong with those. I don't like this aftermarket muffler. I can tell that that's not a nice exhaust system. It looks like it's just a bolted on muffler. And the faded paint job's perfect because it'll bring the value down to the car. And this is different hard pipes and a different intake. So the problem with these is if it's been boosted up, it's potentially got a blown head gasket already. So you try to find ones that haven't been already boosted up. But the price looks right on this one, $4,250. So here's what you do if you're interested in purchasing this car, going to look at it. $4,250. So you think in your head they're probably trying to get about $4,000 or $3,800 out of the car. So I've already read this before. Heater doesn't work. Da 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 da. So those are things to negotiate on. You want to take those into mind. He's already included them to the price, but that's going to be how you negotiate. If you're interested in this car, and I'm not particularly interested in this car, but let's pretend like we are. We've got the number. We're going to go ahead and text message them immediately and ask them if the car is negotiable. If they say yes, then you can play ball. You can go check the car out in person and evaluate it. Listen for a rod knock, look for blown head gasket, drive it, see if it has good tires, good brakes, see if it's been repainted. I don't think that it has, but you know, it's 30 years old, so usually the way you can tell is if the bumpers don't match the paint the rest of the car, but they look like they're equally faded, so maybe this car hasn't been wrecked, who knows. I would get a Carfax if you're that interested, but on a $3,000 car, spending $40 on a Carfax may or not be something that you want to do. Rod knock, blown head gasket. Make sure all that the body panels line up decently. Make sure it hasn't been wrecked. This one looks like it's a hard top. No, it's not. It's just Targa. Okay, so the hard tops are very rare. Also, the 91s and 92s, especially the 92s, are more rare, but 91 is still a little bit more rare than like an 87 or 88. In 1989, they started changing the tail lights to this design, which is a little bit more attractive, most people think. And the front bumper was a little bit different, which is, it's a facelift is what happened in 1989. Now, you want to go in and negotiate, and you use some of these things. This is a little discolored. I don't know if that's just the plastic rock chip 3M tape that they applied back in the 80s and 90s when this car was built or not. When you go to negotiate, you can do it via text, via email. I never do it face-to-face usually unless I have cash on me, because it's hard to negotiate unless you have money on you. You know, it's not true that I don't negotiate face-to-face. I definitely do, but a lot of times what you can do is work on the person slowly, because these, from my experience, these cars are really hard to sell. Who's going to spend $4,000 on a 1991 when you could just go to, you could scroll up and buy a Camry that's like a 2000 model for the same price, right? So there's a ton of cars on Craigslist for $4,000 and up, and these are so old that it's a very niche buyer. So, okay, another negotiating thing is this mileage is way high, okay? The mileage is very high. So, you know, if that engine is toast, this car is only worth $1,500 or so. So you want to use these things to negotiate. The paint job is faded. When was the last time it passed smogged? How are the brakes? How are the tires? Has it been wrecked? Can you show me a Carfax? The miles are high. And by the time you mention all these things, you know, you're coming from a standpoint of this car is only worth $2,000 to me. And they'll say no. I'm not saying offer them $2,000, but offer them whatever you feel is comfortable. For me, I'd probably offer, you know, $2,000 because this is not my car. This is not the car I want to buy. It's worth very little to me because of super high mileage, etc. So you'd offer them that price, and then they're going to say no, and then you text them back or email them back a week later and ask them if it's still for sale. They're going to say, yes, it is. I haven't sold it. And then the negotiation just continues, and it might last a month. Now, this only works on these cars that are hard to sell. And when things are hard to sell, people are more likely to take a lower price, and that's how that works. So, you know, I know as a seller, I've tried to sell vehicles before, sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm willing to sell this way below just to get it out of my sight, just to get the sale done, free up some cash. You can go buy your next car, you can do whatever you need to do, and it's worth to take $1,000 off the price if you can sell it now instead of 3 months from now, because that money 3 months from now to save $1,000, I mean, you could make that money doing some other things. So that's why, and then the value of something is only worth what someone will pay for it. So if someone's not going to pay for this, you know, what they're asking, then it's not worth it. So, you know, you're willing to pay $2,500 or whatever you're willing to pay for this vehicle, and that's what it's worth to you. So usually two people can come together and figure out what works out for both of them. But those are a few of the tips that I've learned just using Craigslist. And, you know, you can usually read an ad and see how well it's written and catch a vibe basically on what's going on with that person. How are they an enthusiast? Do they know anything about cars? Did they take care of the car or not? There's just a lot of details that you can learn just by reading the ads. And I guess those are just some of the tips that I've learned from looking at cars over the past years through Craigslist. Another one we can look at is, for example, I mean, twin turbo auto in Michigan. You know, I wouldn't pay. He wants $60,000, and I'm sure it's a very nice car, but he's got a built engine. You know, I don't want to get into all this because a built engine it's not as reliable as a factory OEM Toyota engine. I'd rather have a Toyota long block. Let's look at a few of these other ones. These are great buys. This was on the Super chassis, and this is that royal sapphire pearl color. Now, I had a 99, which is even more rare than a 98, but this is a very rare color. But it's bad. The paint's falling off. So he's still trying to get a good amount of money for this car, even though it has 168,000 miles and the paint job is terrible. AC works. That's great. I have a feeling this guy would probably take at least 32. The problem is sometimes when people get it in their head that something is rare on their vehicle, they're very firm on the price. They just won't take any less because there's a right buyer somewhere in the world that will pay $35 for this car, but it's not me. The seat needs to be recovered, etc. So it's hard to negotiate sometimes with buyers who feel like that they have a gem or a jewel or something very rare. You will find that sometimes. These IS 300s are great cars. Anything to say about this one? This one has high miles, automatic. Another great thing to do is Car Gurus has, let's look for a Super on Car Gurus. I don't think there are that many. Yeah, none. Let's go nationwide. The cool thing with Car Gurus is it has a VIN. So let's look at this. Let's look at one that I would actually buy or be interested in. Here's a 90 turbo red. Alright, nice and clean, stockish looking. Those are not factory tailpipes. So it's got an aftermarket muffler at least. It's got the gray leather. Seems decent enough. It's automatic. So I would, even though this car is $10,000, I would almost consider paying that much for this car. The price has dropped $3,000. So everything looks good until you get down here to the Carfax and it's got an accident reported. And that's potentially why that paint job looks so fresh. It's because it was wrecked and it was repainted. Now, the title says that there are no issues. It's had 3 owners. So, you know, it's very low miles, 74,000 miles. Everything looks good. I wouldn't buy it though. Not for $10,000, because I think you can find a 1 owner with no accidents and a clean title, clean title, no accidents with 1 owner or 2 owners for the same price. So we'll keep looking. Here's a white one, and let's just. So what I do is I usually just scroll straight down. If there's something that's possibly interesting to me, I just scroll right down to this section. No accidents, clean title, 2 owners, 54,000 miles. Let's just check it out. This is the white. This is a white 89. And it's got the factory muffler on it, as you can see there. The trim looks good still. On these older cars, you want to check for rust in the hatch and whatnot. Tires look okay. That blue interior, mine was white like this. My second car that I ever bought was a 87. It was white, pearl white. So this paint job is actually pearl. If you buff it out really clean, you'll see some pearl in the paint. And then that lovely blue cloth interior that I actually like that interior for some reason. I think that's because the first one owned. Anyways, luxury Grand Tour. So I'd buy this car. You know, I'd have to go check it out, obviously. So I don't like that. I wish it had the factory radio in it. But you can find them on eBay or Craigslist or Superforms or something like that. So it's also got something over here. I don't know what that thing is. So the problem with it, the only thing that I can say about this one is it's 54,000 miles. So everything checks out. The title's clean, no accidents, no modifications practically aside from a radio. Now what you want to do is the engine good? Who knows? So you have to drive it, you have to let it sit there with the air conditioner, and you have to see if it overheats. So if it's got a blown head gasket, you got to floor it, run it through the gears at least for like 5 or 10 seconds with the throttle wide open to see if it boosts correctly, accelerates correctly, doesn't overheat. And then you also want to listen for rod knocks when it's idling. And I would probably look in the coolant tank and see if there's any oil mixed with the coolant so that you can see if it's had a blown head gasket. And then you can look at the oil, make sure it has correct oil level. If it has low oil, then, you know, I mean, literally, if you run the oil low on these for very long at all, the rods will start knocking. So, so you want to make sure that it has proper oil level. You want to make sure there's no coolant in the oil. That's a sign of a blown head gasket also. Check the tires, brakes, check the paint on all the body panels, check for door dings, scratches, dents, any damage like that. Measure the gaps between all the fenders. You know, this car looks pretty clean. I don't see any gaps between the fenders, just even in the pictures, but, you know, it's a 30-year-old car, so you have to check it out. So, anyways, now on something like this on a dealer, they're asking $11,400, and you could probably get the car quite a bit cheaper because these are so hard to sell. They reduced the price by $1,500 just recently. It's been on Car Gurus for 39 days. So one way to see if they'll take lower also is to look at how many days they've had it on the lot. If they've had it for 60 days, 90 days, you know, anything over 90 days, you can usually even work them. They're either extremely firm on the price or they're just having a hard time selling it. They haven't had any inquiries. So look at this also. So, you know, they dropped it by $1,500, so that means that it was for sale for $13,000 not too long ago. So consider that. They probably got this car for $6,000-$7,000, and they're probably willing to take down to like $8,500 or $8,000, something like that. Now another thing to negotiate is you can just go to Kelley Blue Book and you can look up the value of these cars. And you can also use that as somewhat of a ballpark. It gives you it takes an average of the transactions of all the vehicles for that year model, and then it'll tell you how much they're selling for, and it'll give you a rough estimate of what this car is worth. This is pretty low mileage. I would probably get something with slightly higher mileage, like 120,000 miles, 100,000 miles, and save yourself about $5,000, because this is just over the collector's. If it was a collector's item, it would be 10, 20, 30,000 miles, but since this is so low, they're still asking 11.5 basically. So you can tack on a few 20,000, 30,000 miles to this, and it should, this price range is actually pretty good for 54,000 miles. But once you get up to 100, that price should drop significantly. Anyways, I hope that helps you guys, look at Craigslist and take you through a few of the things on how to purchase and how to inspect a car. And anyway, so subscribe and like if you enjoyed the content.